Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Half of the world's population is at risk of malaria today. 300 to 500 million people still contract malaria every single year. And it is estimated to cause 0.7 to 2.7 million deaths a year. So because of these statistics, it is evident that malaria is still a heavily prevalent issue in our globe today. My name is Elise, and I'm going to talk to y'all about the genetic modification of mosquitoes to prevent malaria. So today I'm going to go over malaria, what causes it, the symptoms that appear in people, and current control measures that are being used for the disease. And then go into genetically modified mosquitoes, what they are, the process, the benefits they have, and then are they really feasible for controlling this disease, and what drawbacks may come with it. So how does malaria even work? Female mosquitoes will bite a body, and this allows Plasmodium, which is the parasite that starts malaria or causes malaria. It allows it to enter into the mosquito. And these parasites will then go through the bloodstream and travel to the midgut of the mosquito. And after the parasite goes through many developmental stages, these sporozoites will eventually go to the salivary gland in the mosquito, where it will become infectious when they bite another person. And this whole process typically takes around 2 weeks once the mosquito was first introduced to infected blood. And so what does this look like within the human body, you might ask? Well, once a mosquito bites the person, the Plasmodium will go up through the bloodstream and enter the human liver, where it will go through those same developmental stages that it did in the mosquito. Eventually, after the parasites mature, they will leave the liver and they begin to attack your red blood cells within your body, eating your hemoglobin, as well as expanding within the blood cells, causing blockages and laying eggs, so that the whole cycle can repeat all over again. Now, malaria a lot of times presents itself in common cold symptoms. You can get fever, headache, vomiting, but if symptoms go on for longer and aren't treated, it can lead to seizures and even death. Fun. So what are some current control measures that are currently being used to fight malaria? I'm going to focus on two for this presentation. One of the most popular ones used today is the use of insecticides. So this could look like spraying bed nets with insecticides to be placed over beds for areas that have hot spots of malaria, as well as the interior spraying of long-lasting insecticides onto building walls. This is used in houses as well as other buildings and areas. And additionally, they use like this smoking method with insecticides to kind of smoke out mosquitoes in the area and try to lessen the populations and move them away from areas where human density is high. And while this is fairly effective, it does have a lot of drawbacks. The first being insecticides are increasingly expensive. Additionally, they cause a lot of human health risks. I did not know this fact, but I knew DDT was banned in the US, but actually a lot of insecticides in other countries have DDT in them, so spraying them in the walls of your house is not really the best idea. Additionally, insecticides are pretty bad for the environment. Over time, it can lead to bioaccumulation within wildlife, and runoff will cause these insecticides to pollute waterways as well. And one of the most important drawbacks of insecticide use is continued use of the insecticide can lead to the mosquitoes becoming resistant to it, meaning that malaria will still happen and the mosquitoes won't be dying from the insecticide. And even worse is that the parasites also can become resistant to these insecticides and continue to live even though they're being used. The second most common control measure is eliminating the breeding grounds where mosquitoes lay their larvae. This will, as malaria is highly seasonal, it's in the rainy season most often because that's when mosquitoes breed and their populations rise. They need standing water in order to lay their larvae. So eliminating the breeding grounds is a possible way of lowering the levels of mosquitoes in high density areas. However, this is not really a super viable option because you're eliminating the water sources for local wildlife as well as disrupting ecosystems, and It's probably not really possible to eliminate every single standing water body everywhere. You're definitely going to miss them. It's just not a very feasible option. So, scientists in 2002 came up with this crazy idea. What if we genetically modify mosquitoes? And since 2019, there have been over 1 billion mosquitoes that are genetically modified released in Brazil, Panama, the Cayman Islands, and the Florida Keys. So how does this process even work? Basically, scientists discovered that the SM1 peptide is a 12 amino acid peptide that binds to the salivary glands and the midgut of the mosquitoes, and it inhibits the invasion of Plasmodium into the mosquito. So in a lab, embryos are micro-injected with quartz needles of this SM1 peptide. And then in a study done by Jacobs, Lorena et al., they took 4 of the injected mosquitoes out of their batch, when each population, and bred them with 5 to 10 wild mosquitoes. And basically what that does is it creates transgenic larvae, and the mosquitoes that bred with wild ones, the SM1 peptide gene passed on to them. And scientists are able to discover this because if you look at them under specific light in labs or in the wild, they create a green fluorescence that proves that the gene is there. And each generation, these mosquitoes were propagated by crossing transgenic males in the lab with virgin, non-transgenic females in the wild. So to kind of put this in simpler terms, I have this little graphic here for y'all. Basically what happens is they take the genetically modified male mosquitoes into an area with all these wild mosquitoes in them, and they'll breed with the females to produce only male offspring, which are genetically modified to inhibit the malaria parasite. And as time goes on and they release more and more mosquitoes, eventually there aren't going to be any females left for these male mosquitoes to mate with. So the purpose of the genetically modified mosquitoes is essentially to reduce the population of wild mosquitoes and eliminate the chance of malaria before it can have an outbreak. So what are the benefits of this? In 2019, the Environmental Protection Agency evaluated potential risks of releasing genetically modified mosquitoes into the environment, and they actually found that there are no harms that they have to people, animals, or our environment. And over months when you release the genetically modified mosquitoes, release is meant to reduce the number of the wild mosquitoes, preventing the disease outbreaks, which the CDC states the best way to prevent outbreak of malaria is to control the mosquitoes before an outbreak can happen. However, of course, there are drawbacks to every solution. So the genetically modified mosquitoes actually only target a specific 3 species of mosquito. The most common is Anopheles gambiae. And so wild-caught mosquitoes, most commonly in communities where they have a high population, there are multiple types of mosquitoes, which include the ones that are not targeted through this method. So in order to properly handle malaria, you would still have to have multiple types of mosquito integrated management approaches, such as these insecticide or bed nets as well. And then additionally, eventually ending the release of these genetically modified mosquitoes means that the non-genetically modified populations, those wild-caught mosquitoes, will rise back to normal levels again in the future, which is not good because it will cause a outbreak potentially. So, do y'all think genetically modified mosquitoes are a viable option?